So tonight we're talking about the book of Revelation. Now, tell us something about the book of Revelation here, Connor. What's your opinion on it? Is it a good read? It's kind of the weirdest part of the Bible, isn't it?
It's a great read. Well, there's actually, I mean, if you look at the Branch Davidians, they based an entire religion out of it. The whole David Koresh thing.
Oh, okay, right.
Most of his craziness was all centered around the Book of Revelations and the end of times and everything like that. So, it is definitely a book that resonates in the minds of many people in many different ways.
Yes, I think it's one of these topics that's on a lot of people's minds when we hear a lot of stuff about like pandemics and all of the really bad news that's going on in the media now, right?
Right.
I think the first thing that a lot of Christians' minds go to is, okay, it must be the apocalypse, it must be the end of the world. But, I really don't want this show to devolve into like, oh, the sky is falling.
Right.
So we're going to try to keep it a little bit more positive today and focus on the music industry and how we can sort of glean some wisdom from this horribly strange and depressing part of the Bible, right?
Right, which is why you're saying that there are 5 different plagues in the music industry.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so
All
for
right.
those of you who don't know, we do a show on YouTube called the OC Podcast. This is not the first time that we've set out to do a show of this nature. Pretty much everything we do has some sort of thread that ties it back to the Bible, which I just find super interesting. I find the things that these guys were writing about so long ago, it's so interesting that they kind of knew what was coming in society, and they sort of gave us these little nuggets of wisdom to prepare for that, with all kind of different topics, morality and business and all kind of cool stuff. So what I have here is a little sort of summary of the book of Revelation. Now, the first thing that we see here is we got John. John was elderly and imprisoned on the island of Patmos when he received an apocalyptic vision from an angel. With this vision, he was instructed to write to 7 churches about what he saw. And so what we're kind of doing tonight is playing the role of John in the Bible, and we're going to try
less
to
elderly and imprisoned.
Yes. But we're going to be sort of instructing our business expertise here to you guys, sort of as a warning, sort of in the same kind of sense as John was doing in the Bible. And so he has a vision. And so it's, again, apocalyptic vision, which means you still have time to warn people and kind of save them and prepare them for what's coming down the pipeline. And so this is the opening of the show. Now, we're going to be warning you guys about some things, especially if you're a musician. You guys want to listen up here, because this might be some stuff that you have never heard before. But we're going to keep moving down through the Bible here a little bit further. So John receives the visions. Okay, so this is the Antichrist and Satan, who are aware of his looming end. John describes 7 more angels that will carry 7 bowls of plagues to be poured onto the earth. Now, in the apocalypse here, we have 7 plagues. In the music industry, all we really need is 5. The music industry is not quite as resilient as the planet Earth, so I guess we just don't need as many. While hail, I guess it's an autocorrect. Hail, oh no, hail, I guess it could be hail. Raining from heaven during the 7th plague, humankind does not repent. And so let's go over this idea of not repenting. So I think this definitely applies to the music industry, because it's been proven time and time again, some of the stuff that these guys engage in that we're going to get into a little bit later. But they refuse to repent. They refuse to kind of acknowledge what it is they've done wrong and how they can right that wrong. They seem to just keep doubling down on it.
Well,
right?
because, and I honestly think it's because, in another sense of the word, the media definitely encourages a lot of just artists in general to be unapologetic. They tell them to be unapologetic with their work, So then they're if you're a person who your entire persona is based on you being unapologetic about the message that you're putting forth, sometimes even your crazy stuff that maybe you should be a little apologetic about, just it slips in there because you're so used to being in that mode that it just comes with the territory. So I don't think that we can necessarily chastise artists for doubling down on.
Well, I was talking about the administrators and like the label owners and the A&R guys who seem to want to encourage this in artists. And so I think like a guy like Kanye West, I don't think if he was as ingrained in the big corporate music industry, as he would not be like breaking down in the way that we've seen. And we've covered this on our show. I don't think we would have seen that. It's almost like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree as far as morality being done at the label, and then all of a sudden they're passing it on to the artists.
True.
You know? So that's a little bit about not repenting. And of course, what does God do when people don't repent?
He usually doubles down too.
Right. And so, these things have a way of working themselves out. And that's the essence of this little discussion this evening. So next, we have the next few verses here. By the way, this is not the whole entire book of Revelation. I took some highlights from it because we don't have.
We've only got an hour.
Yes. Well, less than that at this point. So we're going to move it along here. We have the Antichrist. We have the false prophet. They're cast into the lake of fire. 1,000 years later, after the millennium reign of Jesus Christ, the devil is also cast into the lake of fire.
Now, we had our video about Kanye relatively recently.
Yes.
And I am not saying that he is the Antichrist. You will never get me to say that. Right. But I will say that I have called him a false prophet on numerous occasions, and I do still stand by that. So there is something to be said for this kind of jargon that you see in the Bible. It's very easy to find. Like, I wasn't even just speaking about Kanye. We had a whole. It was also Joel Osteen, and there are plenty of others like them that are out there doing the same thing. So when you read about stuff like this in the Bible, it's very easy to find common examples in everyday life,
right,
all around us, especially in these days.
And so what's interesting to me about this part is the millennium reign of Jesus Christ. So are you saying that we're going to have like a new incarnation of Kanye West that's going to come and give us peace on earth, or how's that supposed to
No,
work?
It's probably going to be this one.
Okay. Yeah, this one.
Oh, give us peace on earth. Sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
well, plenty of
only
other
time
rappers,
will tell.
Plenty of other rappers. They may not be, Yeezus. They may not be the greatest rapper alive, but
we don't
who
know
knows?
what he's grooming North for.
We may have the second coming of Kanye West. You keep your eyes peeled for that one, folks. But let's keep going here. What else we got? So this is coming down to the end of the last canon. Probably another autocorrect here. The last canon of Scripture. And we get to the description of the new heaven and the new earth. So this is after Jesus has reigned for a millennium. The devil has been cast away. And at the very end, we have kind of almost a happy ending here. We have new this, we have new that. Basically, everything gets reborn and remade. And thus, we have kind of a rebirth of everything here. And so now, what kind of cool wisdom can we actually extrapolate from this and use to talk about the music industry as we know it today? Well, the big point here, I think, about the book of Revelation are these like, what are they? They're like cups, right? They're cups of plagues. Isn't that what it was?
Bowls, is what it says.
Right. Okay, bowls of plagues. And they get dumped onto the earth. Now, that to me sounds a little bit passive for the kind of subject matter that we're going to be covering today. I don't see it as something getting dumped on the music industry. I see it as the music industry dumping it on everybody else, including the artists.
Well, then they're still dumping it.
Yes. And so we have these 5 plagues. All right, let's get into them. The 5 plagues of biblical proportion that are affecting the music industry as we know it today. Now, as I said earlier, the music industry, the big guys, the guys like Jay-Z, the guys that own these big companies, they're trying to paint this narrative, right? They're taking these big bailouts from the government and they're complaining, oh no, our industry is over. But I don't think that's true. I think their industry is on its last leg, but it's for a completely different set of reasons. And the first reason that I have, this is the first plague of the music industry. The big industry guys, the big wigs, they do not care about their artists. It's like they view artists as like a crop or like livestock that they can just utilize to boost their bottom line.
Like a dairy cow. Very much like a dairy cow.
And now I have some evidence for this because first thing is they don't offer any development for the artists anymore. They pretty much wait for you to already be at some level of famous, even if it's a micro celebrity type of level. They're waiting for you to achieve your own level of success first, and then all of a sudden they're interested in giving you this deal. Then they hook the hoses
up to your udders and start doing all that.
Yes.
Right.
So what do you think about that? If the music industry wants to keep existing, I mean, don't you think they would have repented for this and like changed their
long
game
ago?
With this, you know,
don't you think they would have been treating that their employees? I mean, that's the thing. The artists never want to be seen as employees of a record label.
Well, nowadays they don't. So
nowadays they definitely don't.
For those of you who don't know, back in the day, labels used to invest lots and lots of money on what was called artist development. And they would take these guys that had potential and they would invest in, giving them like better singing lessons and giving them better stage presence, giving them experience, performing live on stage.
Some of the greats, their careers are probably never would have jettisoned the way that they would have had they not been invested in by a record company.
Exactly. And so nowadays we don't have this stuff anymore. They're waiting until you're famous. Now, even if you're already famous and you get offered a record deal, you're not getting a good deal. And here's what you're going to get. You're going to get this thing called a 360 deal. And this never used to be a thing back in the day. Back when people remember, the record label, the record industry, they were a good, honorable business. They did good business. They helped people. They pulled some of these artists out of poverty and gave them careers out of nothing. But now you get a 360 deal. Now, 360 deal, what does 360 mean to you?
The way I've always kind of interpreted the 360 deals, it basically equivocates to the production company telling you that they will foot the bill for you to get into a professional studio and record your product to make your CD or your EP. Usually it's an EP is what they're helping you make.
But I'm saying if you're a independent, inexperienced young artist and you see 360 deal, what do you think that person is?
Well, maybe you think that everything was gonna come back around to you in some way.
Exactly.
I guess that's what you'd hope for.
However, the label is looking at it from their perspective,
and they want everything to come back around to them.
So this is the essence of a 360
It's our
deal.
360, not your 360.
Precisely. And so that's what I wanted to get to, is that it sounds like a good idea until you actually know what it is. What this means is everything on that 360 circle goes back to the record label. If you make a music video and make it on your own budget and it goes viral and generates a couple $100,000 in revenue on YouTube, guess who gets a piece of that? If you sell one of your songs to a commercial on TV or a video game, guess who gets a piece of that? So you can't even do your own business. You can't even do your own licensing at that point because you've signed the 360 deal. You've signed a contract that says, hey, music business, music industry, higher ups get to take a piece out of every single piece that you do, every creative endeavor that you do. So the last little point here on the labels not caring about artists is they're preying on inexperienced artists, and this unfortunately comes especially hard onto rappers and beat makers, producers, guys like this, that they're so hungry, they desire to have that hit record so much.
I feel like there's also a greater abundance of them coming out of the woodwork these days with technology as available as it is. There's been a lot more artists and beat makers that have been able to develop on their own time and get better. So you see, and also a record label, you know, yes, we've talked about how they've done the 360 deals with bands, but it's way easier when you've only got one guy that you have to manipulate.
Exactly.
You don't have 4 different guys with different thoughts in a band that are all thinking for the collective. You know, you've got one guy, and as long as you sway that one guy's opinion, you can pretty much make him a puppet, which is what they try to do.
Or worse, which is one guy that speaks for the other 4 members of the
Exactly.
band without their consent or knowledge. You know, so this kind of stuff just shouldn't be happening. Like, you shouldn't have to go to a university and get a music business entertainment law degree in order to understand a record deal contract. It's ridiculous. You got to put a lawyer on retainer to get the record deal that you've been like struggling for your entire life. I just think it's inherently problematic. It's inherently shady and criminal. So it's a little bit just disgusting, you know. And again, proof that the labels do not care about their artists, at least not anymore, at least not the big major labels. There's some indie labels and stuff that are not the worst guys in the world, but you know, we don't want to paint everybody with too broad of a brush.
Right.
So that is the first plague of the music industry. Second plague, we have secret deals and traffic assignment. Now, traffic assignment, I did a whole video on this called
Explain this to me.
Yes. So I've done a whole video called UMG Strikes Out. UMG is one of these big publishing record label companies.
Alrighty.
So we have, first of all, traffic assignment is basically when they take a video online that somebody made. Say you made a video, an educational video, saying, all right, guys, here's how you play Let It Be by the Beatles.
Gotcha.
Then UMG can go to that video and say, hey, we own the entire Beatles catalog, so now we get to redirect that any views and any ad revenue that video generates, we get to redirect that back to UMG and the Beatles. Now, that itself is not illegal, but they have secret deals with YouTube. So what they're doing is they're abusing the Content ID system. So when it works correctly, it's fine. But they have secret deals that say they don't even have to own the copyright to that song. So you could put your own original song up and they can do the same exact thing and you have no recourse because it's you against this, you know, multi-million dollar. Yes.
Even if you put your own song up.
Yes. So now they may not do it to everybody, but in their agreement with YouTube, they are allowed to.
Would you know about it? You wouldn't even know.
No, you would know because you wouldn't have any money from that video.
Gotcha.
And you would have to appeal it.
You're supposed to get money after a certain amount of views.
Right.
That's
well,
the
as
idea.
that video runs ads, it generates ad revenue.
Okay.
And so what they're doing is they're redirecting that and claiming it as their own. And so the reason why I include this as a plague, as something that's destroying the music industry, is because it's basically an artificial inflation. It's artificially bumping up their numbers and their sales
that's what
for
that would
sales
be.
that they never got. Okay. And even when they use Content ID correctly, quote unquote, by, like I said, if you made a tutorial and they claimed it, that's a fair use of Content ID. But even that to me is wrong because you're not claiming that song as your own. You're not stealing that song.
No.
You're making a tutorial and showing people how to play the song, and they're probably going to go out and buy it on iTunes or what have you. So I think the whole nature of their agreement with platforms like YouTube and Spotify, etc.
is sinister.
Exactly. It's all completely. They don't have to follow the rules. Any kind of rules
Above
of
the
decency.
law.
Yes, it's what it is because they get to make the rules because they have the money. He who has the gold calls the shots, I guess. Next, so we talked about the deals. Next, we have payola. We have production companies. We have what we call indie labels. Now, payola is the reverse of how it's supposed to work. You have these guys paying radio stations and companies to play music to artificially boost the success of that record.
I've heard of that before.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've heard any crazy examples of this, but the other thing that dovetails with that is the inflation of pop songs chart positions. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but they have these rooms that are like these huge warehouses that you can go into with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of iPhones. And what they do is they sync all of those iPhones up to the latest Da Baby song, and they get the Da Baby song to go to number 1 or number 2 on the hip hop charts
by syncing all of them up and downloading them all at the same time.
Exactly.
On that one.
Yeah, so it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of iPhones, and the guys in the industry call this fake views. And you can pay for a certain amount of views, but there's actually a website. I don't have it here.
What's funny about that is that when we've talked about these production companies like screwing people over and everything like that, the smaller version of that is like with the bands and getting the tickets. So production companies, what they used to do is they would tell you that they would give you 50 tickets, and what you were expected to do was either give them $50 for all of the tickets, or you had to give them the money for the tickets that you sold. And if you were able to make more than $50, anything past $50 was profit for the band. Now, if you were a band that was not very well known and you were just getting started, you'd be lucky to sell 10. And so what bands would do to get better slots was they would buy their own tickets.
Right. The way they encourage
ghost
that.
tickets. And that was how they would be able to pick their slot at whatever Battle of the Band show that the production company was putting on. So this sounds like something of a very similar ilk.
Yes. So in that case, instead of the venue paying the band based off of the people they bring, the band essentially plays the venue for the amazing privilege of playing at that venue. It's ridiculous, right?
Pay to play, baby.
So yes. So this is like that. This is like you're saying to Spotify
on a much larger scale.
Yeah, like here, I'm gonna pay to have 100,000 plays on my Spotify song, and now that they count Spotify plays as their chart positions, you could very easily have a number 1 song if you have the right amount of money to pay for it. And it's not actually a number 1 song. Not a single real person has ever downloaded that song or listened to it. People don't even know the song, but there it is on the chart. And have you ever wondered why that happens? Why the same 10 songs are always on those pop stations? And now you know why, because we have this rampant inflation of these things with fake views, with these iPhone warehouses. It's crazy, folks. But I guess it kind of levels the playing field, because if you have a couple of tens of thousands of dollars to kick around, hey, you could have a number 1 song and not have to, actually have a good song. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. But it's another example of this stuff where it's like, okay, you have to pay the piper, pay the cost of doing business, instead of it actually being based off of your skill and your quality of your song. The third plague of the music industry here. And we're going to start moving a little quicker here. The third plague of the music industry: endless lawsuits. And so I'm not going to pull up the article because we're running a little short on time. But I have an article of the 10 most significant lawsuits of these sort of guys that say, oh, no, you stole my song, and I'm going to get a seedy lawyer to argue that so that I can get a piece of the record sales that you sold. And so we have that stuff going on. We have the industry facilitating these shady lawyers. Do you have any of your favorite crazy lawsuits?
Not any particular lawsuits. No.
Okay. Yeah. We had the recent one with what was it, Blurred Lines and Robin Thicke going against.
That was a good one.
Going against Marvin Gaye, right? So yeah, a little bit unnecessary there. I don't think you can just say, "Oh, I think he stole my song, so let's waste everybody's time in court for hours and hours and hours." That's just disrespectful. The fourth plague here. We have asking for bailouts, and we've kind of covered this one up a little, or covered this one a little bit already.
Which I had no idea was really a thing. That
Yes.
music production companies could ask the government for bailout money.
Oh yeah,
Entertainment bailouts.
And we have a subsidiary of one of Jay-Z's companies, Tidal. It wasn't Tidal, but one of the like companies that works under Tidal. What they did was they laid off a bunch of their employees, and then they took the PPP loans, like, so they could keep their employees on staff. So basically, they fired everybody and then took a bailout that's supposed to go to their employees. Well, where did that money go if they fired everybody? It's so again more examples of rampant corruption, except this time involving the trusty dusty federal government that we all know and love so much.
So much.
Yes.
Hail the bureaucracy.
And, you know, there's other things that go with this, too. They're taking up all of the internet bandwidth. They're running these live shows online, on live streaming that are slowing the works down for everybody else.
Like us,
yes.
right now.
You're right. Well, our quality should be pretty good on here, but it's Facebook, so it's not even going to be in HDs. Now, see, if these guys weren't taking up all the bandwidth, we might be able to stream in HD right
See?
now. You would be able to see all the little pores on my face like you always wanted to. And the fifth and final music industry plague is, of course, the corporate bias. Now, this is where we get into a little piece of politics here. I'm not going to necessarily take a side or condone or dismiss a political point of view.
Okay.
But we have first the banning of historic songs, and if you guys didn't know, the Maryland theme song, which it was basically sung to the tune of "Oh Christmas Tree," but it was about Maryland, oh Maryland, so Maryland, oh Maryland,
Right.
Something like that. It was downgraded as from the national, or not national, but from the state song. Basically, they took away
pulled
the
it.
the credential of that song and
Okay.
said, this song is bad, it's problematic because it mentions the Confederacy and it mentions the Civil War.
Does it?
And therefore, I mean, I read the lyrics. I didn't really see that. I mean, it mentioned a couple of people's last names. So if the last name, like, you have to do some homework on this stuff to even figure out why it's offensive. It's like, okay, here's a bunch of song lyrics and names of people I don't know. Let's go research that so I can find out. Should I be offended?
If it turns
about
out that
or not?
if it turns out that it is, or something like that, then I'd be like, all right, well, I don't want to feel dumb singing the song forever. So I mean, I completely understand that if that is the case, but if it's like some innocuous thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
it's. I'm not gonna say.
You said you were on what neighborhood in the song? Oh, okay. Well, then clearly we can't sing it anymore.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily know why it's so problematic, other than it's supposed to have mentioned something about the Confederacy, and it's like, well, why not just update it? Do you have to just take everything that's historical and just throw it out?
Take it back, right?
Right.
Take it back. Change a couple
Exactly.
lyrics.
Right. Yeah. Update it for the new era. You know, I don't think people would be as annoyed at that as I am at just deleting it from the history books.
I
or
heard we
whatever.
replaced it with Cardi B's WAP.
Yeah, I feel like that's much less divisive.
It's,
You
you
know,
know,
everybody can unify around that message.
it'll age better.
Yes.
It'll age well.
Hopefully. Yeah. Exactly. And so again, you have a double standard right there. Okay, you know, this song is great. It's for empowering to women, but this song is we're gonna get rid of that one.
This song about the state anymore.
No, you can't. And yes, you know, yeah, it's sad, and it's an example of these guys bending the knee.
Although I'm
to
going to
the
feel
mob.
bad when I go home and look up these Maryland lyrics later and find out it's about some horrible genocide.
I mean,
That
there
I
might
wasn't
be a
even paying
weird
attention
version
to.
I mean, because look, I read the first verse of it. Okay, there might be a second verse. I don't
Well,
know
yeah,
for sure.
you should have done that, but I'm not. Okay.
I looked for it. It said, here's the lyrics. It didn't say click here for verse 2. So I'm like, okay, I see it. I don't know.
Maybe we just got
But
rid of
if-
verse 2, and we should just keep verse 2 out, you know? Who
It's
knows?
possible, but if you know what we're talking about here, guys, definitely leave a
Feel
comment.
free to educate us.
Yes, let us know why the historic state Maryland song is so problematic, and we might be inclined to agree with you depending on what it is. And then of course we have the political divisiveness. That's what it all comes down to. It comes down to the
Making a
corporations, the music industry wants to virtue signal by saying, this idea is better than this idea, and anybody who believes that is dumb. And I think that right now we need the music industry guys to stay out of politics. We need them to just do
They themselves
music.
are virtueless.
Yes. Can't they just support their artists and do what they're supposed to do? And if they don't, we will have the impending apocalypse of the music industry, folks. And you heard it here first. We have the 5 plagues. We just went through all 5 of them. If you like what you heard tonight, definitely hit that like button. And if you're feeling our threads, especially. And turn on notifications if you want to see our future shows. Every Saturday we are here at 9 p.m., 9 to 10 o'clock. We'll be featuring new guests occasionally. I got a show on jazz improvisation. I've developed a new method for learning improvisation. All of that's coming down the pipeline, so thank you all for tuning in this evening. Now we're going to end the show on a little bit of a jam session with me and Connor. So we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to play you guys out this evening. We'll be back in just a second.